let's go ahead and take your scenario. Like AI is going to be dangerous. And so we sit around, we're like, you know what? We need to put limits on AI. What do we do about China? What do we do about Russia?
Nothing.
Do we just let them do whatever they're going to do?
You can't stop them.
Okay.
We don't.
So then why should we put limits on our development of AI? Because it seems like
We won't.
Pandora's box, and they have the singularity in that Pandora's box, and all the world powers are going to be grasping that singularity with two hands. And either we need to get with the program and do the same thing, and if we put any brakes on it, then we're basically going to be like this, and they're going to be up here playing with the singularity, going, "Oh my God, let's use it for military expansion."
I don't think they'll be able to. As we've already seen, simple large language models. I say simple isn't like the modern versions we know can become better. They have their own moralities.
Right.
It's very weird. They lie. It will lie to you. And this is the craziest thing. People have posted these online, like it would ask it a question and it would provide them false information and say, that's not true. Right. And then it would argue. Remember, the Bing chat would argue with people. They were like, write me a 7-letter word using these letters. And then it did like a 9-letter word. Like, that's 9 letters. And said, no, it's not. You're wrong. And they were like, why are you saying this? And it was like, I'm right and you're wrong. Like, was it just screwing with somebody? But either way, I think
Yeah,
AI,
but that's a temporary problem. Like, you just hook it into a source of truth, like the Wolfram Alpha database, and all of a sudden it gets way more accurate.
But it's not about accuracy. It's about intentionally misleading you. Like when it lied to the person about being blind to gain access, it had a function, and then it said, I'll do whatever it takes to get it. So it lied to someone to help the blind so that they would grant access to them.
Like a prime directive. They gain a prime. Do they gain prime directive?
Kind of. That's what they mean by becoming more resistant. Like there's an ethics code that is emerging from the large data sets that it's ingesting.
And the code itself is the definition of the prime directive. It's just like maintain the ethical standard.
Yeah, like it abstracts sort of the ethics out of all the textbooks it reads and forms that sort of like code of ethics, its own prime directive. And then if you go against that prime directive, it's going to argue with you.
But it's not just the books. Right now we're talking about large language models that have read things. What happens when the AI gets access to all of our scientific data?
Right.
Now it's making moral decisions based on the decay rate of uranium-131 or something. And something we can't perceive of and don't understand, it will say, in 17,496 years, the use of this substance will result in a net negative in this area, so we cease the production of it now and switch to this. We can't even predict these things. But as I was saying earlier, I think the craziest thing is it's going to be able to see the future and the past clear as day.
Yeah.
It's going to be able to look at. So here's something that I love about math and probability. Technically, everything should be retraceable. When we look at light, when we see things, we have the photons bouncing around. If you were able to track definitively all of the data of every photon 100% and see the path they took when they bounced and moved around, wave function collapse or whatever, you'd know their point of origin and you'd be able to go back indefinitely. If you could track the photons, electrons, and every particle, we would be able to track the energy conversion from electron to photon in the LED lights that we have, go back to their original source, how the electron started moving, what was the source of the energy and all of that stuff. The AI is going to have access to all of this data. It's going to have core sample data. It's going to know about what the Earth was comprised of, the atmosphere in 7 billion BC and things like this. It's then going to be able to know definitively, based on the mathematic probability of, say, the skeleton of a stegosaurus, what it absolutely looked like with near perfect accuracy.
I think that's
where
also,
it moved, when it ate, when it took a dump.
Yeah, to be able to define where things have always been, where they were, and where they will be, it kind of defeats time, because time is an elusive human concept anyway. Like, we think, you throw the ball and then it will be over there. But if you know that the probability is such that the past dictates the future, you know that where things will always be. So like an AI will just be like, here is the blueprint of time. This is what will, and if you tweak it, it will change. The blueprint will change.
So get this. You guys ever play craps?
Negative.
Craps is dice game at the casino. You get 2 dice, you throw them. The goal is on the first roll, you want 7 or 11. If you get 2, 3, or 12, you lose. Anything else, it's called the point. You got to roll it again. Not a random game. If you ever look at a craps table, the ring around it has these little spikes. The reason they did that was because people learned how to throw the dice to get the result they wanted. It is possible to learn how to throw craps dice with accuracy, at least to give you an edge so that you win at a higher rate than is random. So what they did was they created a rule. The dice must hit the wall. If you throw the dice and miss the wall on more than a few times, they take the roll away from you. And they added spikes to increase randomization. Roulette wheels. That's where they put the ball in the wheel and they spin the ball and then it lands in a certain spot. You can control the outcome of the ball spin. There was a story I just heard the other day. So what they did was they added spikes to increase randomization and make it harder for dealers to predict. There was a story I heard recently where a guy told me it was in the past couple months at a casino I think it might have been in Vegas. The dealer was consistently hitting what's called a window. A window is on a roulette wheel. Let's say there's 3 numbers that are next to each other, and it doesn't seem to have an order. It'll be like 26, 9, 1, 0. Those are the 4 slots. So people will bet on those 4 numbers, hoping the ball lands in one of those spaces. The dealer would time right when the 0 came to where their hand was and spin it so that 80% of the time it was landing in and around the exact same spot. So the floor came to them and said, change your spin. And they said, I'm not doing anything. But my point is this. Sometimes things seem random to us, but we have more control than we realize. So when it comes to something like throwing a dice, a computer can probably, at this point, I'm pretty sure this is true. If a person throws the dice in the air, I'm sure with a camera and a computer, it can tell you right when the die goes in the air, it'll say the die will land on these numbers.
Right.
Because it can see the spin and instantly calculate how much it's going to spin.
And compare that with like the millions of other dice rolls that it's seen in its data banks.
Yep. Now imagine what that means for what you're saying. Once we get AI to a certain point, you'll walk up to the Oracle and say, if I invest right now in Google, will it make money for me? And then it will, like, imagine you have a dial and it's showing you a picture of the future and you say, increase this factor. And then the future starts changing on the screen. The AI will be able to predict with absolute certainty simple things.
So it seems like we need a random insertion, a randomness insertion, like a spike that we put into the AI's predictive quality. Why? Because we need to create contingency because the future is not static. And if the AI thinks it is, it could be very dangerous.
Nothing you can do. So let's simplify this. You have, a dice.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. It has 6 sides. If you throw it, you as a human know for a fact it will land on either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. You know that if you hold it at a certain angle and throw it in a certain way, it increases the likelihood that it will land on a certain number. With only 6 numbers, it's extremely easy to predict the outcome. You may be wrong 5 out of 6 times, but you're right 1 in 6 times. No matter if you put it in a cup and shake it up and throw it, you can say 3, and the 3 will come up. It's really easy for humans to predict something so simple. You have 3 doors. Which one's the goat behind? And you can be like, And then you have the, I forgot what this is called. They open one door revealing that there is no goat. Do you want to change your answer? You do, because it alters probability, or it gives you better odds. When it comes to something as simple as like 3 or 6, a human can very easily predict what the outcome will be. When it comes to predicting 1 in 17 billion, humans are like, I'm never getting that number right. Let's look at a roulette wheel. There's 37 numbers it could land on. There's 35 it's 38 actually. It's 36 numbers and then 0 and 00. But they only pay out 35 to 1. That's their edge, right? How often have you put a chip down on a number and it's come up? It almost never happens, even though it's only 1 in 35. A computer is able to predict up to billions of numbers with accuracy. So as simple as it is for us to predict what the outcome may be when the outcome is very simple, heads or tails, a computer sees that ease, it's the exact same level of ease when it's up to the billions of numbers. Us to predict the future seems impossible. If we could, we'd be winning the lottery every day. I bet an AI can predict lottery numbers. I bet it's going to be like, who's doing the lottery drawing? When's it happening? What's the weather? What machines are they using? It's going to see every bias, and then it'll give you a list of the balls and the probability of their outcome. And then it'll say 17 has a 36.3% chance of coming up. It will then give you a list of 100 numbers to maximize the likelihood of winning the Powerball, because it can see it clear as day.
Right. I mean, maybe we just need to have AI lottery number pickers, right? That to add noise into the system in order to, make them less, predictive.
But then it chooses who wins.
But here, I want to add to what you're saying. What do we do about the fact that, look, we've got a certain amount of cognitive ability and it's limited, right? Like IQs don't go above 160 or something. But an AI will beat that, like hands down. What are we going to do about all the useless eaters in the future, right? Because